Hi everyone, my name is Keith Brooks and this is Brooks Channel, and for today's video, we're going to continue reading the first draft of my Outcasts novel. Today we're going to be covering Chapter 5. Last time we covered Chapter 4, which started the first official arc of the series, and covers the chain of events that leads the first four main protagonists to leave home to start their adventures. In the previous chapter, we covered Joey and Mitch's side of the story, which involved conflict with their parents. This time we're going to be covering Jay and Woody's side of the story. So, without further ado, let's open up the book and start reading. Chapter 5. Earlier that day at Constanzo's diner, Jay was busy at work. Due to the problems with other students, mainly beating them up for messing with him, Jay was homeschooled since middle school. After finishing his schoolwork and when not hanging out with his friends, he would work different jobs at the diner. On this day, he was waiting tables, only to end up in a dispute with a customer. "Why would you let so much go to waste like that?" Jay asked the customer, pointing at his plate, which still had half an uneaten salmon on it. "I just can't eat any more," the customer replied. "Then we can just box it up for you and you can take it home," Jay said, sounding more irritated. Due to Constanzo's teaching, Jay grew up with the belief that all food should be treated with the utmost respect. This means cooking it to the best of one's abilities, never intentionally tainting it, feeding whoever is hungry, and never letting a single scrap go to waste. Jay took every last one of those lessons to heart, and so seeing someone so willing to waste so much that was so carefully prepared for them made him very upset. "Look, I really don't see what the big deal is," the customer said, not understanding Jay's anger. Jay looked at him with an angry face as his fists balled up. "The problem is, our cooks worked hard to prepare this for you, and you just want to throw it away," Jay growled at him. "Do you just not care?" he yelled, slamming his fist down at the table. The customer just stared blankly at him, shaking in fear. Hearing everything from the kitchen, Constanzo hurried out and over to the table. "Jay!" he yelled at his apprentice, making him turn around with a nervous look. "In the kitchen, now!" He pointed to the kitchen door, and Jay walked to it without a word. "Sorry about that, sir," Constanzo said to the customer. "We'll have someone bring you a box for that, with your bill." He then walked over to the kitchen door with Jay. The customer just sat there looking down at his plate in confusion. Both Jay and Constanzo then entered the kitchen and stopped at the usual station in the back. Jay already knew how this would go and was trying to think of a way to get out of it, even though he knew it would be in vain. "Look, boss," Jay started to say before being cut off by Constanzo's fist slamming down onto the top of his head, making him yell out in pain. "Ow!" "What the hell were you thinking?" Constanzo yelled angrily at Jay. "Were you seriously going to hit a customer? If it were anyone else out there, I'd have already fired them." "I wasn't going to hit him," Jay said, sounding just as furious as his teacher. "I was just trying to convince him not to waste so much of his food. He's doing like half of it and was just going to throw it all away. I was just doing what you taught me." "I never taught you to scare the shit out of my customers," Constanzo yelled back. "It's great that you have so much respect for cooking, but that doesn't mean you have to lose it and pick a fight with everyone that doesn't. And why do you always have to keep being like this?" "Because I want to be like you," Jay yelled back at him, causing the whole kitchen to fall silent. He never spoke of this before to anyone. On this day, however, he would finally make his life's dream known to the man that inspired it for him. "I want to be the head chef of my own restaurant one day," Jay admitted in a calmer tone. "I know you've been teaching me to cook to help with my trait boosting, but I love cooking, and I want to be as good a chef as you, and as good a man as you are one day." "Jay," Constanzo said to his apprentice, calming down while hearing him speak. "You always told me how you were friends with my parents, that you helped my mom when she was pregnant with me, and after my dad walked out on her. Then you took me in after she died giving birth to me. You never had to do any of that, but you still did. Constanzo just looked at Jay with a blank look. You didn't have any other family to go to, he said after a moment of silence. I couldn't just let the son of my only friend in this town become an orphan, so I took you in and just tried to raise you as best I could. You did more than I ever had the right than you ever had to, Jay said. I know I've never made it easy for you. I've been a total pain in the ass. But I mean everything I'm saying. I want to run my own restaurant and be as good a chef as you. Constanzo stayed silent for another moment, just taking in everything Jay had just said to him before finally speaking again. All right, he said to Jay. Now let's get you started on that now. Jay just stared blankly at him, unsure of what he had planned. Right now? He said, sounding confused. That's what now means, you dunce, Constanzo yelled at him. Now follow me. Constanzo led Jay to his office and had him sit in the chair by his desk. He then unlocked the safe in the corner and reached inside. He pulled out an old tattered notebook. He then placed it on the desk in front of Jay, who looked at it confused. What's this for? Jay asked curiously. Just open it up and have a look, Constanzo replied after sitting down at the other side of the desk. Jay then opened up the book and glanced through the first few pages. His eyes widened as he read its contents. Constanzo just sat there, smiling while watching Jay read his old notebook. Meanwhile, at Highmore High School, Woody was rushing down the hallway. Because of having to stay after class because of problems with his classwork, he was late for his dance club meeting. With magic being the first, dancing became Woody's second biggest hobby. With how mages were treated in town, the fact that he got into a club centered around one of his favorite things felt like a stroke of luck, or so he thought. Woody opened the door to the club and greeted his fellow members. They all turned to look at him with a look of awkwardness. Oh, Woody, the club president said, and with an awkward tone in his voice. Woody looked at him, wondering why everyone looked and sounded so off. What's up, guys? Woody asked curiously. The club president rubbed the back of his neck nervously as he started explaining things. Well, you see, he stopped for a moment to try and get the right words together. We can't let you be part of the club anymore. Woody's eyes widened in surprise at hearing this. What? You're kicking me out? He asked in confusion. What did I do? You didn't do anything, the president admitted. It's because of our contest with the next town over next week. They heard we have a magic user on our team and said they won't compete against us. Apparently they think your magic would give us an unfair advantage. You can't be serious, Woody shouted at him. I never use my magic for dancing. Plus, I've never missed at the meeting or practice once. I shouldn't have to be thrown out. I really don't want to do it, the president said, but we need to do these contests to keep the club going. I'm sorry, Woody, but we don't have a choice. Woody just looked at him for a moment in silence. Yeah, sure, he said before turning to leave. I can't believe this, Woody yelled to himself as he walked down the hallway. Just when he finally found a club that allowed him to join, he was thrown out before his first competition with them. All he could think to do now was head home and try to forget about it. Unfortunately, Woody was so lost in thought that he didn't notice another boy walking the opposite direction of him. The boy in question noticed Woody's lack of awareness and stopped to move his foot outward. Woody's leg hit the boy's foot, making him trip. He fell face first with a yelp, while the other boy looked down at him and laughed. Better watch where you're going, shrimp, he said mockingly. Despite being 14 now, Woody hadn't grown very much, only growing up to 4.5 feet tall. Mages in Highmore were picked on enough just for using magic, but Woody's lack of height made him even more of a target. Just another thing he was forced to put up with. Today, however, Woody was in no mood for it. He got up, looked towards the other boy, and put his hands out at him. In the last 7 years since his training began, Woody had grown exceptionally skilled with magic. Among all the kids in the magic district, he may have been the most talented mage of them all. He looked straight at his target and began charging up his magic. The other boy just stood there, frozen in fear. "Hold it!" one of the teachers yelled, walking up to the boys and standing between them. He then looked over at Woody sternly. "Young man, use of magic is prohibited on school grounds," he said. Woody looked at him in disbelief. "What?" he asked the teacher. "Didn't you see what he—" "Enough!" the teacher yelled at him. "Now, if you don't have any after-school activities, I suggest you go home." Both the teacher and the boy turned to walk away, the boy turning his head back for a moment to give Woody a smug smile. Woody just stood there for a moment before turning the opposite way to continue his way home. It took Woody about 20 minutes of silently walking to return home. He stepped inside to find the lights off and no one else there. "Hey, Dad, you here?" Woody called out, receiving no answer. He then looked over at the living room coffee table to see a note in the middle. He walked over to pick it up and silently read it to himself. "Woody, had to take a job out of town, so I'll be gone for a few days. Hold down the fort while I'm gone. Love, Dad." It was a note Woody was all too familiar with reading. He felt it was for the best, though. With everything that happened earlier, he didn't feel like talking to anyone. Instead, he just jumped onto the couch to lay down. Soon, he ended up drifting off to sleep. Some time later, he was woken up by a knock at the door. He rose up with a groan and looked over at the front window next to it. It was dark out, so he must have been asleep for about 2 or 3 hours. "Coming," Woody called out, getting up to answer the door. When he opened it, he saw Mitch standing there with Joey behind him. "Mitch? Joey?" Woody said, wondering why they were at his house so late. "What are you guys doing here?" He noticed Joey looking down with a nervous expression on his face, and Mitch looking at him seriously. "We need some help," Mitch said, as they all stood quiet for a moment. Yep, and that's the end of the 5th chapter. Yeah, this one is the shortest of the ones I've written so far. Yeah, the conflict with Jay is pretty simple. Not so much a conflict that is as it is him starting to open up about his ambitions. Sorry, I was trying to get the words together. Yeah, Woody's is more so his school problems and the problems he faces in town in general. People discriminating against magic users. Yeah. And then in the next chapter, it'll be all 4 of them meeting together to discuss everything that happened and what they want to do. And that will lead to what causes them to leave town altogether. Yeah, yeah. And sorry if I sound a little awkward reading this, as usual. Something I'm trying to work on. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I'm reading these chapters aloud in videos. But I hope you enjoyed listening either way, and that you'll be looking forward to the next chapter, Chapter 6. And yeah, not much else to say, so I'm just going to end the video here. And as always, please let me know your thoughts about this war in the comments. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Bye.